Welcome to the February 21, 2023 regular business board meeting of the Lower Merion Board of School Directors. The board believes it's in its best interest and the best interest of the students of the district to hear comments from district residents. An opportunity will be given later in the meeting for public comment both in person and through the chat feature, which will be read by Solicitor Roos. This meeting is being live streamed and video recorded with sound for public broadcast. All participants joining via the webinar will need to use the chat feature, which will be enabled during audience recognition. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to our meeting this evening. We are starting our meeting with a presentation from Ms. Schaefer on sort of a Healthy Start Times update on where we are as we move through this process. Ms. Schaefer?
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be back here again to talk a little bit about where we are with Healthy Start Times. My first meeting in my new role was to talk about initiating our Healthy Start Times conversation with a target of implementation in the fall of 2023. And so there's a few parts to this presentation. One is a brief overview for people who may just be tuning in for the first time, and then to talk a little more about what we've learned from some of the operational steps we've taken, to give an update on that, as well as some of the preliminary feedback we've gotten. And I say that with great emphasis, it's preliminary. And then finally, some clarifications about the engagement opportunities that are available. And we had some great feedback around the survey we launched, and I just also wanted to offer some clarifications around that. So to get us started, the why are we looking at changing school schedules? We've talked about this for a long time, and some people in the audience, I know it's been a very long time, but we do believe in the science behind ensuring that we have addressed the chronic sleep loss in adolescents. And major organizations such as the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics have recommended that changing secondary start times to begin no earlier than 8:30 provides a better opportunity for adolescents to get the sleep they need based on their biological changes and the shift in circadian rhythms that affect them during puberty and in early adolescence. So our goal is to educate the community about that, and one of the other resources that some of our community members have pointed to, and I think it's also a good resource for folks that want to take a deep dive, is the Start School Later organization that has educational materials and resources about this topic. And so there's a link there for individuals who are interested to take a deeper dive. Also important to this conversation is just to orient us to where we are. These are our current school schedules. Some things to notice is that we operate on a 3-tier system, and there are times that we have to maintain between those tiers in order for our transportation system to run effectively and get students where they need to go. It's a very complicated system. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But we also, another thing to notice is the length of the school day. So that's another variable that we can adjust to in changing school start times to be more accommodating of addressing that why. So last meeting we talked about the proposed schedule, which we call the secondary swap, and that's namely because we swap middle and high schools in this scenario. And you can see there's also a slight push. I mean, I shouldn't say a slight push. The high schools start a little later, middle schools start slightly earlier at 8 a.m. You can see that we changed the start and end times at the various levels. The total time also changed for both high school and elementary, with high school decreasing by 20 minutes and elementary school increasing by 10 minutes, excuse me. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means in terms of realizing those schedules in a minute. And just for reference, for people that are going back into board docs and looking at this again, here's a side-by-side of both the current schedule and the proposed schedule, and you can see those changes. This is something that I think is important. Is this something that's worth doing? I think we've agreed on that. Is it is it achievable? I think it is something we can achieve. It's work that's ongoing and figuring out how to do it in a way that's successful and sustainable. More on that in a second. Are there some compromises? It depends on how you look at it, but there are situations that aren't going to necessarily run the same way they are now. Obviously, we have different start times. Those impact families differently, and so that's something we're working on understanding better through the engagement that we're doing right now, through surveys, through some listen and learn sessions, also through our emails that we're collecting at sleep@lmsd.org, is to figure out how this is going to impact families and staff and what we might be able to do to try to minimize or mitigate some of those impacts so that we can move forward. And I'm not going to check, is it easy to do? I'm not going to pretend like it's an easy thing to do, but it is something we're working through. Before we launched these surveys, we did, because of the feedback we've received through various groups that have been working on this project for a while, is identifying some of those challenges up front. And these were sort of identified as themes. In other words, they came up more than once. The impact on the earliest and latest drop-off times. That was a question that came up, and we're hopefully going to give you a little insight into that this evening as a concern. The middle school start time now being a little bit earlier doesn't meet that recommendation, which we acknowledge, and there might be ways that while it may not meet that time, are there other things we can do from an education standpoint to help our families and our students understand the importance of sleep and things that they might be able to do at home that allow them to maximize sleep. So those are just things that we were aware of going into the conversations that we're now having. The goal for the district is to make a change that is both successful and sustainable. And one of the important things I'll point out there is that we make allowances for adjustments. So I think people have talked about this or used this phrase, don't let perfect get in the way of good, because it might mean that we're going to move in a direction that's going to necessitate some adjustment in the future because we live into it, we learn from it, and we think about things a little bit differently once we experience them, good, bad, or otherwise. The operational status, and here's sort of the highlights, the new things for the audience and the board this evening is the question about how do we need to adjust our work to make this work? So some of the questions that have been presented that we've been working on, this reflects ongoing work. We're not at final answers or solutions yet. Some of the highlights for this evening are around transportation adjustments. We're going to take a quick look at some of those estimated times that people have asked questions about. Also, the high school schedule. We have a schedule that, have identified a schedule that we think is doable, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We do have remaining concerns about how that impacts our students that attend Central Monaco Technical High School, and we're going to explain a little bit about what that looks like tonight. Elementary schedule, not going in a deep dive tonight, but that is under review. We do have some concerns regarding the impact of the staff workday and supervision, because when you increase the time of the day that students are present versus the time of the teacher or staff workday, you have 10 minutes more that we have to account for in terms of student supervision. So while 10 minutes doesn't sound maybe like a lot to some people, it really does matter, because when we think of the great things that, for example, teachers do during time that they have away from students but can be with colleagues, the planning that they do, the meetings that they can have that might involve, IEPs or family meetings or a call to a family, those are all things that can be done in 10 minutes. So that is a really, valuable time period that we have in our workday. Adjustments to before and after care. Some of the questions that have come in have been around that adjustment to the morning time period for elementary in particular. We have been in touch with our on-site provider who can adjust their schedule. We're also looking to explore ways to potentially partner with them for additional coverage during that time. That necessitates them to go back to their team as we're getting back to our team to figure out who might be able to provide that supervision, but those things are in the works because we know that is an identified need. Some staff accommodations. Because of the shift in time, we do have staff members that are communicating to us a desire or a need to potentially move to a different level based on their family situation, depending on their work situation. Some of our staff have second jobs that they go to, depending on their work schedule. So we're probably not going to be able to accommodate all requests, but we're looking for ways to address those requests that are coming in. And certainly the not knowing yet is something that we're also feeling from a staff perspective of, we need to make some decisions. And I know that's a family concern as well. I don't suggest that it's not, but that is another thing that we're hearing from staff as well. Also, the athletic fields, to the extent that we will need accommodations for practices or games that go late into the fall or maybe in the early spring, we will have and are looking to accommodate those needs for potentially off-site practices and games during those periods of time where, due to lighting, we would not be able to accommodate on our fields. So as promised, one of the things that we looked at was potentially the estimated earliest pickup times and drop-off times under this new proposal. And again, these are some estimates. We know that it doesn't, and I'll show you in a second, doesn't account for every condition that we will live into or need to live into as something like this would be realized. But these are the estimates that were provided at this point based on this proposal. And so you can see middle school there beginning the earliest pickup potentially as early as 7 a.m. And then the latest drop-off for elementary school potentially at 4:57 p.m. Some of the noticings that we've talked about internally has been just with middle school. Sometimes we've talked about the efficiencies of high school going first in the order. Middle school sometimes takes a little longer, boarding and getting off buses. So those estimates are based on what we anticipate might be the case with students who are younger getting on and off buses. That's subject to some change. Elementary school being later in the evening, we want to make sure we have on-site, sufficient on-site staffing in terms of our dispatch systems so that if we have needs, oftentimes with elementary, because of wanting to make sure a parent or guardian is there to pick up an elementary student, we want to make sure if for some reason we have a mix-up or a student ends up at a school function as opposed to on a bus, that we have sufficient staff to receive those calls later into the afternoon. Again, some of these estimates, and this is the disclaimer of this presentation, which is traffic patterns, potential ridership changes. They were thinking there might potentially be an increase on the secondary side because of the adjustment to the schedule. There could be a decrease. We're not sure. That's what we're anticipating, though. Non-public schools may change their bell schedules, which could change these times that are projected, as well as transfers that will also just need to be sort of realized and may necessitate some adjustments to those estimates. So some additional transportation adjustments that are in progress, issues such as late runs, how does that impact late runs, community-based instruction, midday runs, special situations involving such as split custody or attendance area exceptions that are where transportation is provided, based on programmatic reasons, after-school programs and clubs. Again, I want to emphasize our intent is to maintain the level of service that we have, but some of these things are, again, works in progress to best understand what what these variables will look like once we move forward with this potential scenario. So the schedule for Lower Merion and Harriton High Schools, it reflects a reduction of 20 minutes as the proposed schedule showed. Preliminarily, we have a framework for a revised schedule reflecting this deduction by primarily capturing this time and transition. So we're not seeing a big impact to our instructional programming, that we can manage this through some shaving of transition time. I would highlight this has been fully vetted. Typically, when we go into a process of changing a schedule, we have a committee. We spend a lot of time studying it. We want to make sure we have buy-in from a number of different stakeholders. But in the interest of time and the task at hand, we do believe that we can create a schedule that is doable and meets those hour requirements for the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That said, we do believe any additional reductions would compromise that design and would need a more in-depth review. Central Monco Technical High School. There's a lot of words on this slide, and I apologize for that, but I wanted to make sure it was out there for review, because their schedule won't change just because ours changes, and so their day starts at 8 a.m. So we're going to have to figure out how we manage getting students for both sessions, because we'll need students attending both morning sessions and afternoon sessions. And we think, it's doable. But we do need to continue to work through how we will provide the transportation, how will we provide the supervision, what will those extra 40 minutes look like for a student that we're anticipating who comes back from the program but doesn't go right into lunch and learn. When will lunch be provided for the students that are going to the PM session, because that's not an option at the site, so we're going to have to work through some of those details. Again, something that's in a work in progress, but wanted to make sure that we identified that as a change for these students in particular, because it will have an impact on likely on the length of their school day. So we thought it was important to call that out, because that was also something that we were seeing reflected in some of the feedback we were getting, concerns around this particular schedule. So we wanted people to know that we are paying attention to it, and we want to continue to work through it in a way that minimizes the impact on these students. A summary of some of the feedback we've received to date, and these are, again, summary points, and I think tried to be reflective of what I've shared so far, just the emails that we account for, and that will later be analyzed by Dr. Christina Paul. We have a number of people that have shared their perspectives with us, and we do read every single email that comes through, and this is a summary slide that shows some of the themes that have emerged that we're seeing. I don't know that there's anything surprising here that we haven't heard or talked about in connection with the schedule. But again, you see some of that impact on our Central Monco students reflected in some of the staff concerns. We see students and parents liking the change as well, because of the ability to capture that sleep that we've been talking about, especially at the secondary level. We know that at the elementary level, there's concerns both from parents, guardians, and staff around that later school time, going later into the afternoon. And I think that's something that we continue to talk about internally, like what are some of the things that we can do about that. I know just having a conversation with a couple of the elementary principals, currently we try to schedule specials such as PE or recess later in the day, but that's our primary grades, so not everyone can be scheduled at that time because that doesn't work either. But there are some strategies I think we can talk about and see if we can more broadly apply them across the elementary that might mitigate some of those concerns. Next steps for us, we want to continue to provide updates to the board and provide as much information and feedback as possible so that a decision, relative to the fall of 2023 is made in the month of March, so that families, so that staff, so that the administration can plan accordingly. To that end, this is a refined slide about the engagement opportunities, which were also highlighted in the letter that went to community and to staff. The listen and learn sessions, I should also add, we're sending out a follow-up communication that'll either go out tonight or first thing tomorrow morning that adds a number of additional listen and learn sessions we heard that feedback right away. That includes a variety of times and locations. A lot of them are virtual just because of our timeline, but those are going to be available for registration by tomorrow. And we also have sessions for staff. We continue to have the designated email account that we're monitoring. And then the survey, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, that has been made available to families and staff. We were also, and I believe the letter went out today, I'm looking at Dr. McGloin, to families indicating that we will be providing opportunities for students in grades 5 through 12 to complete that survey during the school day, and we're going to designate some time for that to happen. But we provided the parent-guardian notice today to families giving some additional information about that. And finally, some of the questions that we received following the launch of our survey, I'm going to try to highlight them, but we have made some adjustments to the survey in working closely with Hanover. They've been very responsive to the questions that we received. We know that there was a question about fifth grade families being kicked out of the survey. That should not happen anymore. They were associated, I believe, with elementary, and that has since been corrected. Families of rising 5th and 9th graders will be able to answer the survey based on next year's schedule. And so when you're taking the survey now, you should be able to see all the schedules reflected as you're answering questions. And those that would need to go back and make that adjustment can do so. The way in which Hanover will review the data, they have a rigorous data cleaning procedure that will eliminate invalid responses such as multiple survey results from singular respondents and incomplete surveys, because one of the other questions we got was, if I try to go back, I get kicked out. You can go and restart that survey. All of this information is also going to be included, that communication that goes out this evening. I said either this evening or tomorrow morning. So everyone will get that instruction to, if this happened to you or you would like to resubmit a survey response, you will have the opportunity to do so, and those instructions will be provided. Finally, as I mentioned, we have a number of additional listen and learn sessions that are being offered over the next couple weeks, a combination of in-person and virtual. Registration is required. That is also moving forward and is highlighted in the communication that's being released. And I believe that was an additional, just keeping that framing in mind. When you do share comments with us through the sleep or elsewhere, it's helpful for us to know how this change will impact you, how we can make this work for you and your family, and again, anything else you would like to share. And this presentation will be available. We will be sending that communication out with those details I just described. And again, please feel free to share information with us via sleep@lmsd.org. So that is the end of the
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. I think it was particularly helpful to see some of the operational impact and discussion areas and research areas that the district is undertaking. I wanted to open up to the board if there were any questions. Ms. Shrek?
Hi, thanks so much, Superintendent Schaefer. I have quite a few questions. I guess to start out, first of all, just really helpful context. Some of the things I'm thinking about are in the schedule for elementary in particular. Have we mapped on what time lunch would be for the elementary students in terms of arrival and how that would impact their day?
That's in progress.
Okay.
So-
And like staying in scheduling, wondering about the high school schedule. I noticed that the middle school course selection for incoming students is coming out this Friday. Has the high school course selection for next year's schedule already gone out? So, sorry.
Yes.
So would that mean then we are needing to redo that aspect of scheduling at the high school level as well, or that would have zero impact, it's just the time?
I'm going to ask Dr. McGloin to either confirm or she can jump in and answer the question, but
It will not have an impact on the courses that are chosen. What we're looking at is a reduction of some lunch and learn travel time in between, and then some shaving of time in classrooms, but nothing that's substantial or that'll impact the schedule in general.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going, or other people an opportunity? Okay. Another question that I had, when you talked about right at school expanding their schedule and care and going back, is that still, though, a service that parents and families would pay for, or that's something that the district is exploring?
yes, and we're also exploring, when I said that we're looking for ways that we could potentially partner, because if there's a supervision that we can provide, obviously that has a budget impact, but we're seeing whether there's ways for us to partner with them, because they already have staff on site to do that, but we both have to sort of figure out budget-wise and what that would look like for them. So it is an exploration to see if there's ways that we could propose potentially sharing that type of supervision or doing it on our own, but that's still in progress.
Okay, gotcha. And when at one point you shared, not in tonight's presentation, but at another point you shared the start time of neighboring districts and how actually very few in Montgomery County have a later start time for high school in particular, and the possible implications on extracurricular competitions, shared activities, sports, etc. Has there been more information or research around that?
Beyond the schedules that we're aware of in Montgomery County, we're anticipating, especially in like next year, a lot of those schedules get set now. So what we're anticipating is that students may miss more time in class. We've said that before because they would need to leave for a competition potentially earlier if we're not able to negotiate a later time with those districts that have an earlier start. So there's sort of some commonly established start times for games, for example. But our intent in talking with our athletic directors would be to try to work out later times if we could, so as not to have to, have kids miss as much class time. But I can't say that schedule has been set, but it is on our mind of a need.
Can I follow up briefly? So the chart that we saw was from Montgomery County, and we sort of straddle this weird thing where we're in Montgomery County and a lot of work we do is with Montgomery County, but I believe we're actually the only Montgomery County school in our athletic division. We play in the Central League.
Okay.
And that is like Haverford, Radnor, right? It's a different, and many of those schools actually have TE, like Conestoga. They've already actually changed their schedules, not Haverford. But I just wanted to say that it's like a weird.
Gotcha. No, I didn't.
That's
know
a weird
that.
place.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But I mean,
But
that's
whatever
certainly
that
something that I'd love
comparison
to
is, yeah.
bring back as another update for you I think you've identified one that's on people's minds as well, so.
Just 3 more.
Do
Sorry.
I get a water break?
Okay, yeah. One question just top of mind is, what criteria would be used to determine staff requests who are requesting different positions? Maybe not prepared to share at this time, but I would imagine that could get tricky.
Yes, and so I'll use the example of what we did last year with the K-8 transition. That was a pretty big shift for a lot of staff. And in the fall, we put out a survey to say, what would you like? And we sort of tabulated all of those responses and were very attentive to that as we were planning out the needs and our changes across across the schools. And when we knew we had an inconsistency between what someone wanted and what the need was, we did follow up and have direct communications with those impacted staff members to say, I know this isn't what you wanted, but this is what we really need you to do. So we tried to be really intentional. Obviously, time gives us the opportunity to do that. So in the interim, because we're not sure yet, we're telling staff, you need to make decisions based on what, you believe is best for your family. But again, there's a little bit of I have to acknowledge, stress building up, because if people don't know what that final decision is, they are not able to apply for positions that we're already posting for next year. So it's that we're kind of in a little bit of a balance time, like we need to post so we can get them filled, but we also know that there's this reality of staff that we would like to try to accommodate if we're able to. So we would ideally have a process that we go through similar to the way we did with the K-8 transition, but it a little bit depends on the timing.
Gotcha. And then the third and fourth graders, at least the fourth graders, after that awesome presentation last week, maybe could I make a push to survey them as well as to their perspective? I was surprised to see us not survey any of the elementary students on their thoughts. Since we were doing it in school.
We did talk to Hanover a bit about that, so I think let us go back just to see because they designed a survey that,
yeah,
I think in thinking about who the end user is, so maybe we can talk to them a little bit more about, or figure out a way that we might be able to get some of that input from.
And then something top of mind, I can look into this startschoollater.net, but I guess I'm really thinking about how does COVID impact the different age groups differently and where we are at this moment of time and the different risks there are for each age group accordingly based on where they are in their schooling process is just something top of mind. So the current elementary school fourth graders, this is their first year in elementary school. They've been in school for a whole year. Does that impact any of the recommendations from Start School Later or other research in terms of some of the needs or not to put one science against each other, but I'd just be curious.
I think that's a great question, and I don't have an answer as I stand here, but it does remind me that I wanted to say something at the beginning of this, which I framed the last time, which is I think as a district, we know that this is one aspect of wellness, and there's so much that we want to make sure that we're addressing in terms of student needs right now, especially post COVID, or on the other side of the hybrid learning, for example. So I think, I would just respond. I would be happy to look into that a little bit more. I can't say specifically that I've seen a correlation between COVID and start times. I definitely have seen it correlated with overall student wellness, and I think that's really our primary focus, and this being one piece of the puzzle that we can potentially address.
Got you. And finally, I'd just like to make a comment because I didn't have a chance last board meeting on the vote for tyranny. I did vote no to that. I want to clarify or just state that I'm very much in support of the start times. I am concerned of the plan that was presented by that group and the truncated amount of time that we were proposing to do community engagement around a single issue, given the integration of the multiple issues we have at play to have a long-term plan. So just wanted to put that on public record because I didn't get a chance last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schrock. I just wanted to note that Ms. Garrison is joining us virtually. So Ms. Garrison, if you have any questions, please jump in.
No, I don't have any questions at the moment.
Perfect, thank you. Ms. Kalish.
Thank you. So my question is around how we're integrating the feedback we're going to have and how we're planning as an administration and a board to sort of review that feedback in terms of some like people wanting different ordering and who that information is coming from. So I know we haven't decided that, but if you had any thought of what that process would look like for us as a group.
I think I'll take it in shorter steps. I think what we're going to try to do is continue to update as much as we can the community. Now, we don't have very many board meetings between now and March, but our plan would be to work with the teams that we've brought on board to synthesize and collate what we've received to date, share that out so that there's an opportunity for the community to understand where we are at that point in time, importantly the board to understand where we are at that time, but in terms of the actual vision of specifically how that will be broken down, I think that's still in the planning process.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we as a board have the ability to take action beyond vote on the current proposal or vote to not change start times. That is just something that I'm not concerned about, but something I just want us to keep in mind to make sure that we as an organization build in time to have that discussion before we're making final decisions. And I know this timeline is like real short. So I appreciate all the work that's going on behind the scenes on this. Thank you.
Dr. Sautner?
I only have 3, I promise. Okay, so first, we basically put a 40-minute window in between each age bracket. But I feel like I've heard that the high school kids are the fastest, and the middle school kids are the least, and then the elementary school, or the middle, and then the elementary school kids are the slowest, getting on and off the bus. So I feel like I'm saying none of this right, but you get the point.
You did. I think.
Would that give us a possibility to be shrinking that, since the elementary kids are going last, the fastest kids are going second? Is there going to be an ability to catch up some of that time? Because I'm not going to lie, that end time makes me have 5 more questions.
Yeah, no, the schedule that's presented is pretty much as truncated as we can make it between tiers. You'll see that in the afternoon, I believe, there's a bit of so there's typically more ridership in the morning than in the afternoon, especially at the secondary level. So you can see there is a slight adjustment at the secondary level between high school and elementary, where it goes from 40 minutes to 35 in the afternoon. So there is a little bit of a shave there in recognition of that, but that's as tight as our transportation department feels like they can get it.
And that, I'm sorry, I was going to ask a follow-up. So, and that scheduling, right, knowing that elementary is last, they already are last, right? So we already have a sense of middle and high school, right? That they're about the same and they are being flipped.
Correct.
So I think that it seems to me as if whatever options that there would be for sort of tightening it would have already been done, because they're already trying to.
Yeah, it just seems weird if they're all different in their behaviors, that the time in between is almost the same. That's where I'm getting stuck.
So, and you can see right now, I mean, this is actually trimmed down from the current sort of corridors that are existing between the levels. So for example, it's 7:30 and 8:15 at high school, so there's a 45-minute, so we're already pushing a reduction there that we think can happen. But I think we're, just based on the amount of times that I've heard Mr. Wilson's talk about the need for that time in between, whether you could squeeze another minute or 2 out of there. I think what he would hesitate, and I'm just not going to pretend to speak for him, but I think where he would hesitate in this moment is because of those disclaimers I described earlier. about, you know, we don't know what those traffic patterns are going to look like. I don't know that he would feel comfortable saying we could reduce it even further, standing here today.
But we would do an assessment.
Well, I think that's to the point of like success and sustainability. What's a lived-in experience? You know, it could go more, it could go less, but I think that's where we can potentially make some further adjustments.
So second question, right at school being changed around and then that potentially having at multiple schools and not just at a few schools, does that change the busing situation where kids have to get picked up and moved back
Right
to
School is in all of our schools right now. I think we have their wraparound program is at the administration building. So that's the only, when we talk about transporting right at school, it's kindergarten only, and it's to the administration building for that half-day kindergarten program.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And then last question, fourth grade elementary school students still walk home by themselves. So what is the impact in our communities 5 o'clock is dark. And so what are we thinking about the safety of our kids walking in neighborhoods that we love very much, but also understand the way people drive in our neighborhoods?
That would be something we're still exploring as a need. I mean, there's crossing guards, but then that's just not a solution for every single corner that we have. So I think that's something that we'll have to continue to look at as far as what are options that are available. And it's not what I would say a theme that's risen to the top. I think more is the transportation timeline than walkers that I've heard so far, but I'm not saying that it doesn't exist as a concern. It's just not one that I've heard as a theme yet.
Okay, thanks.
So a quick follow-up again on the bus timing. I think was sent a note that the high school and middle school runs, they cover a larger area as well.
Thank you.
Right? So that's part of the difference, right?
The math is not working.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board? No, Ms. Garrison? Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Schaefer, for this update. I think it was very helpful. Gives us the opportunity to hear more and ask more questions.
Great. Thank you.
Next on our agenda are committee reports. As always, we try to start with our students. So Ms. Simmons from Harriton, if you would like to give your report, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Throughout February, there have been many notable events at Harriton. On February 3rd, the annual Winter Pep Rally was held to celebrate winter sports as well as to showcase the work of Dr. Harriton contestants and other Harriton clubs and activities. Dr. Harriton, in fact, takes place this Friday. On February 7th, several principals and assistant principals from surrounding school districts visited to observe Lunch and Learn and potentially implement it in their own schools. On the 17th, teachers had a staff wellness day and took the time to connect, build relationships, and enjoy time with their colleagues. Throughout the month, Black History Month has been celebrated in advisories, with our next advisory being on Friday, and quilt making being planned for a school-wide quilt. At the same time, individual Rams have also had numerous accomplishments. Harriton senior Vincent Delela and junior London Williams earned Central Montgo Technical High School Student of the Quarter designation for their performance in their respective areas of study. TSA recently participated in the 2023 Region TSA Conference, where the team claimed 35 top 10 finishes. Senior Mariel Brosman was recognized by Patch as a star student for her involvement in the Unified Bocce Team Ball, which joins people with and without intellectual disabilities on the same team. Milan Rami and Abe Lloyd qualified for the indoor track state championship meet at Penn State. Milan will be competing in the 600 and 200 meter dash, and Abe will be competing in the 200 and 400 meter dash. Senior Chandik Lee has earned a spot in the Region Choral Ensemble, and he will go on to participate in the Region Chorus Festival. 9 Harriton students were also selected for the Regent Orchestra by PMEA. Students from Harriton also attended the 17th Annual Delaware Valley Consortium for Excellence in Equity High School Student Leadership Institute. This year's theme was Use Your Voice to Share Your Light. Special shout out to Nathan Banto for organizing and chaperoning this event. As always, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Simmons. I will give a shout out to Dr. Harriton. It's a really great event if anyone wants to go, and they raise a lot of money for really great organizations, including the Lower Merion Township Scholarship Fund. So thank you. Fortunately, Ms. Wu is unable to join us today, so then we'll move on to our board committee reports. And the first is a report from the January 25th Communications Committee. Do I have a taker? Anyone? Okay. We're going to move on to the February 1st Curriculum Committee.
Okay, we can cycle back to communications. I'll be brief on this one since both the presentations that we covered in CCOB were actually then presented to the full board in last week's Education Committee meeting. First, we had a presentation from a group of current and former 4th grade teachers on the implementation of project-based learning. PBL is the concept of transdisciplinary learning by the process of an entry event, followed by research and exploration, then to creation and sharing out. The committee reviewed their experiences in their classrooms this year and how it positively affected both academic and socio-emotional outcomes for their students. Next, we reviewed the new elementary STEAM special. STEAM teachers at all 6 LMSD schools presented on the types of activities their students at various levels were engaged in, such as coding, engineering design challenges, robotics, and more. We reviewed the engineering design process and how it's applied to learning in the STEM classroom. Universal STEM instruction has advanced the district's equity goals, especially for those students with IEPs who also have access to that STEM instruction. And as a personal plug from a kid who is obsessed with the STEM elective, it's a really, really great program, and the teachers were really fantastic in getting it done. And Ms. Kanciamessa also was integral in getting that up, and it's been really great for our elementary students. So the next meeting of the curriculum committee will be March 1st at 8:30 a.m. in this room. See you there.
Thank you, Ms. Kalish. Ms. Robinson will do the report from the February 3rd Policy Committee.
Thank you. The policy committee met in this boardroom in person, and the meeting was live streamed for concurrent viewing and recorded for later viewing. Updates and overviews. We received an update regarding the student wellness policy in AR 254. A committee of principals, wellness council, students, among others, will meet to discuss the policy in AR in greater detail. Possibly, we'll get this back in May or June this year for adoption. Proposed for adoption was AR 825, Relationship with Law Enforcement. This was discussed, and there were no changes from the first reading. First readings, we had policy 8-, which is cybersecurity, which is a new policy. It's a new policy that is preparing for adoption with the safety and protection of members of the school community in mind. There will be an administrative regulation forthcoming in the near future. Policy in AR 136, home education. This policy is coming to the policy committee as there were changes in the related law. It requires the approval of home education programs, as well as the services which are available to the students when home educated. It does not cover homebound education, such as when a student is ill or home for some other reason. We then discussed policy in AR 604, property tax, penalty, and interest waivers. The policy states that the failure of the taxpayer to receive a bill for a property that the taxpayer has owned for more than 1 year is typically not considered a rare or extraordinary circumstance. However, beginning in 2023-24 fiscal school year, the board will automatically waive additional charges on the real estate tax of taxpayers who failed to receive a tax notice during the first year of ownership of real property. The taxpayers need to apply for and properly submit a waiver request as detailed in the administrative regulations. Then we went on to Administrative Regulation 114-2, Individualized Student Supports and Services, which covered Section 504 compliance. This was briefly discussed as it is going to be brought back after we received some additional guidance from the Office of Civil Rights, or OCR, of the U.S. Department of Education. AR 124, extracurricular and co-curricular activities, is being considered for the same issue, guidance from the OCR. And then we had AR 610, purchasing was reviewed for related changes in the law. There was a discussion of equity around purchasing or entering into contracts. The district will be looking at this issue with a lens towards the recruitment and advertising processes. The next meeting of the policy committee will be on March 3rd in this boardroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. And then next is the facilities and purchasing meeting update from Ms. Schaffmeister.
Thanks.
Take a deep breath.
Yes, yeah. Sit back, relax. This will be a long one. We met on February 16th at 8:30 a.m. And following a summary of the discussions and recommendations of items that were included in the agenda, we recommended for approval the list of bills covering the January 17th to February 14th of 2023. The following purchasing report items were reviewed and recommended for approval. For Harrington High School, $70,805.10 to Corbett to purchase media center and library furniture, $146,765 to Webster Fitness Products to upgrade fitness room equipment that is available to teams, gym classes, and students. This furniture and equipment is original to when the school opened and is no longer functionable, and both purchases are under CoStar contracts. To Lower Merion High School, $27,147.40 to Sportsman for football uniforms with pricing under CoStar contract. That's for 80 away and 80 home uniforms at $170 a uniform. To Bala Cynwyd Middle School, $47,635 to Wenger Corporation with pricing under an Omnia contract to replace aging acoustical shelves in the school auditorium that have worn down. District-wide, $33,028.19 to Dell Technologies with pricing under CoStar contracts to upgrade devices for Raptor screening systems and that replaces devices that are at end of life. $22,445 to United Rentals for a 40-foot scissor lift under a CoStar's contract. This will replace a decommissioned one that's 29-year This will replace one that's 20 is going to be decommissioned and it's 29 years old. Normally we will rent, but purchasing this one, the one that is used, it will save money in the long term. And then $70,909 to Tri-Am for district-wide building automated system BAS replacement parts and supplies under a CoStar's contract. The BAS is the brain of the HVAC systems in each of the buildings, and any of these parts fail, the HVAC system goes down it'd be up to a 6-week lead time for parts to arrive. In support of an operational BAS, a current review determined the following parts and controllers should be held in inventory for immediate replacement in case of failure. District-wide operating systems and user access, administration building, main controller and power supply, Belmont Hills Elementary School, main controller and power supply, Marion Elementary School, main controller and power supply, Welsh Valley Middle School, 2 main controllers and power supplies, Cynwyd Elementary School, main controller and power supplies, and 34 upgraded room controllers. To Welsh Valley Middle School, $210,600 $56.90 to FB Web for air handler and adapter replacement parts under a CoStar contract. Units that support the C building, these are 4 units that support the C building, a series of modules that will replace the air handler. The old system has been kept alive by these replacement parts. Belmont Hills Elementary School, $17,685 to Starlight for cafetorium stage lights under CoStar Contract 034-10. These lights date back to 1998, and $5,000 of this $17,000 will come from the American League's donation that was made in August 2022, or it was approved in August 2022 at our board meeting. We reviewed the following district contract and recommended it for approval. New MCIU, Montgomery County Intermediate Unit Agreement to coordinate access billing for the district due to the person in this position recently vacating it. This is for $70 an hour and expires June 30th, 2023. The access billing is labor intensive, and Student Service is taking it on, but will need further support of MCIU until this position can be filled. We approved Narberth Ambulance Service Agreement for automatic external defibrillators. They will provide annual maintenance service for its automated external defibrillators. The annual service fee is $33 $33 per AED. And if replacement parts are needed, they will charge us manufacturer charges plus 4%. There are 36 AEDs across the district on fields and in schools, and this is a not to exceed $3,000. On a monthly basis, they will make sure a green light is blinking and if supplies are needed. To note, the 911 system or 911 system also wants to know where AEDs and Narberth Ambulance is our first responder in the area. We recommended for approval JCC rental agreement for one softball field for Black Rock Middle School softball teams to practice and play greens over the spring season, covering 39 specific dates between March 20th and May 19th from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. The cost is $120 per use for a total of $4,680. We recommended for approval $18,956.70 to Visual Sound Quote to Smart Learning Suite software subscription renewal. We'll provide software updates and support for Smart Learning Suite software. It's used by elementary and middle school teachers and a subset of high school teachers. Beyond its uses and capabilities for the teachers, it also integrates with the interactive projector systems and smart panels. We recommended for approval $111,564.80 to E+ Quote for a purchase of Cisco iPhones. The purchased Cisco iPhones replace older phones that will not be compatible with the phone system upgrade that was approved last month's meeting in January 2023. Many of these phones have been used for over 10 years. It includes wall mount kits, 20 conference stations, and over 750 phones. We recommended for approval the following 4 agenda items that support preparing the final plan application for the parking lot reserve held at Penwyn Elementary School as required under the Lower Merion Township Code. This parking lot was placed in reserve but has not been documented with LMD. LMT condition of approval number 34 of the preliminary plan requires the school district to submit the final plan to the township no later than June 20th, 2023. To that end, we request to be approved tonight individual work order with Chester Valley Engineers, not to exceed amount $35,000 for site planning, design, stormwater management design, and erosion control design related to the parking lot. Individual work order with Gilbert Architects, Inc., not to exceed $12,500 for layout design of proposed pedestrian ramp and landings. Individual work order with Glack and Thomas Panzik, not to exceed amount of $10,000 for landscape and planting plans related to the parking lot. Individual work order with Traffic Planning and Design, Inc., not to exceed amount of $25,000 for drawing, calculations, documentation, and forms related to the PennDOT Highway Occupancy Permit. We recommended for approval $20,000 construction for a construction change directive at Black Rock Middle School to furnish and install 4 permanent epoxy resin, acid, and base resistant undermount sinks to replace temporary sinks in Black Rock Middle School Science Room 3072. The anticipated installation is either during spring or summer break 2023. In addition to the above directed, we recommend for approval the following changes orders for Black Rock Middle School. $4,500 to Gessler for limited work at fencing that will be added back to charges to IMC. A credit of credit of $11,000, that was wishful thinking, $111,000. $11,111.50 credit from IMC General Construction for tech center material and cabinet tops that were not needed. $13,586 to JBM Mechanical Construction for filter change costs. It's being added back to charges to IMC. They didn't complete work on time and sanded after filters were installed, shortening the lifespan of the original filters. To Borough Electric Construction, we approved change orders of $13,353.75 to add power for faucet rooms and 2026 and 2028, $1,868.74 for flush valves in toilet rooms in 2009, 2010. We received an update on construction of the middle school. The main gym is open for use with the occupancy certificate received. The teacher station in Science Room 3072 is fully operational. To be done, corrections to remain, still remaining on audio, visual, and HVAC automatic temperature control installation. Chemical storage cabinet in Science Room 3072 is being procured, and 4 student sinks, temporary sinks are being installed. Use expected on February 21st include air and gas, final sinks correct depth, and are expected to be installed acid-resistant counter over spring break, worst case summer 2023. The fume hood in Science Room 3072, connection occurring might have already happened. It says this from last week, it was this week, so it might have happened already. Track coating, the final servicing of the tracks is still set for June 2023. There are about $15,540 forecasted for future change orders. To date, we have $5,013,905 in total change orders on the construction project, the bulk of which which came from 4 causes. $2,222,464 resulting from additional work related to soil excavation and site preparation. $632,122 in change orders resulting from omissions or errors made by the architectural firm in the building design. $1,019,162 in change orders resulting from omissions or errors made by professional and sub-consultants related to building design. $613,511 in change orders from Lmsb's request. There are $2,126,413 in claims made by the contractors and $565,666 in claims made by Lmsb, which will be resolved through dispute resolution process. Including all disputed claims, the total project cost is to date is $105,964,026, which is higher than the $563,038 projected cost at the time of the contract award, but less than the $114,062,660 original construction estimate. Community comments at the meeting included future effect of school funding decision and potential of selling Oakwell. Questions regarding the 2016 master plan for Arnold Field, the possibility of using fields on adjacent property to Black Rock Middle School that has a soccer field. A community member also gave us a list of alternative fields for use for Black Rock Middle School. A question about who to contact if community identifies properties, and a request to protect the habitat and be environmentally thoughtful of the habitat living on the Oakwell property. The next facility and purchasing meeting will be held on March 16th at 8:30 a.m. in the same building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schaffmeister. And finally, we will have, the Communications Committee report from Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Communications Committee met on January 25th, 2023. 2023. Just a real quick update. We received updates on the communications team's efforts, including preparations for Black History Month, the Building Belonging video series, and the Martin Luther King Afternoon of Service. Received an update on the pilot for recording the committee meetings, and received an update on the effort to translate school messenger messages that go out district-wide. Among the languages that those messages will be translated into now include Arabic, Chinese, French, Spanish, and Hindi, and that's expected to go live this month. And we expect it to affect about 812 students district-wide. The next Communications Committee meeting will be March 29th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. That is the conclusion of our committee meeting reports. We do not have any additional agenda items to add at this time, so we will move on to audience recognition. So at this time, we will hear public comment. If you would like to speak at tonight's meeting and have not yet signed up with Mrs. LaPera, please do so now. For those of you joining us via the webinar, the chat feature will now be open, and you will see a 10-minute timer appear on your screen. You can submit your comments and/or questions via the chat feature. Please be sure, in both cases, both live and on chat, to begin with your full name and where you reside within the district. Again, it can just be a neighborhood. It doesn't need to be specific, and it's important in order for your comment to be shared. There are public comment. I want to ask if we have any student speakers that they'd be allowed to go first.
Yes, and I did ask Sam to please sign up first, so you can come on up, Sam. Then followed by Sarah Thomas, Dina Yaski, and Lee Tavis.
Should I start? Or? Hi, good afternoon, respected members of the board. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you all felt very loved by your communities and families. I was very lucky early today to get to meet with some of you to discuss our plans and our hopes for Oakwell Forest. I know that I'm really grateful that I got to be able to meet with you guys. I just wanted to come here tonight to reiterate some of the things that we've been saying for the last few months. And add on one additional thing that I've been thinking about recently, which is that Lower Merion Township has committed to being carbon neutral by 2045. And I'm not aware if the school district has decided to match that commitment, but I do think that that is an opportunity the school board could look into, to even being groundbreaking and committing to carbon neutral by 2030. There's no reason that in a school district as affluent as ours, we have styrofoam lunch trays when we could have biodegradable ones, or why the lights outside of this building don't have any caps on them to prevent light pollution. There are relatively simple changes the district could be making to lower our carbon impact and to protect the future of the students in this district. And obviously that includes and extends to Oakwell Forest. And I have been really lucky to be able to speak with a lot of members of the board, and I'm sure you've heard our comments before, on the importance of preserving Oakwell and the importance of protecting those watersheds and that historical resource. And I look forward to further collaboration there. I wanted to add one thing that is outside of my usual scope of comment, which is that I heard during Ms. Robinson's comment on, or report on the policy committee, a policy on police involvement in schools, or law enforcement involvement. And I will admit I have not researched that policy, but I do hope that the views of the board agree with the views that I've heard from most students I've talked to, which is the correct place for cops in a school is nowhere, the correct times to call the cops on a student is never, and that the ideal purpose of teachers and school administrators is to keep police presence outside of schools as much as possible. So I didn't want to put my voice out on that. But yeah, I'm mostly just here to extend my gratitude for the school board for being so willing to listen when it comes to issues like Oakwell and healthy school start times and really everything. You guys have really shown an amazing commitment to community engagement that I hope we can continue. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Sam.
I just wanted to quickly say that it was fantastic talking to you and your student colleagues today, that it was a really fruitful discussion, and I feel like we actually were able to have a conversation where we were able to go back and forth and really get to the heart of a lot of issues and where we were each coming from. And so I just wanted to say that I appreciated your making time for us in the middle of the day.
Okay, Sarah Thomas, Dina Yaski, Lee Tavis, and then Lisa Prosden.
Sorry, just quickly, I just wanted to try to respond to one of your comments. and I enjoyed our time together as well today, so thank you for your time. Regarding the policy question, we've long had a requirement to have, and I'm looking at our solicitor, an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with our local law enforcement that kind of describes the relationship that we have with the police, and I hear your voice there. And we also acknowledge that we need them also in service of some of the situations that occur that are about student safety, staff safety, and things like that. So it really outlines the parameters of our relationships and honoring like what our respective roles are as you described them, right?
Thank you.
Sure. Sarah Thomas, Winwood. I'll be speaking about 2 items tonight, healthy start times and Oakwell. Regarding healthy start times, I'm sure you've gotten lots of feedback about various issues with the survey. Having tested out the survey for various scenarios, residents are unable to take the survey if they do not currently have students in a district school. This includes parents like me who have a child that will be entering kindergarten this fall. I will be impacted by changing start times, but the survey does not let me respond because my child is not currently attending an Lmsb school. Parents of 5th graders are also unable to complete the survey, and parents of 8th graders are only asked about middle school start times, even though their child or children will be in high school next year. The survey also does not let you go back and change answers to previous questions once you move on to the next question. Based on all of these issues and others, I do not think the responses will yield valid results. Honestly, the survey for full-day kindergarten, which was created by the Full-Day Kindergarten Committee, was written much better and was free. The district should ask Hanover to create a new survey and scrap the current responses. Let the community know that the survey had many issues and ask residents to fill out a new survey. Now regarding Oakwell and the need for additional fields for Black Rock. I'm very pleased to hear that an agreement was worked out with the JCC for baseball and softball for this spring, and it looks as though the long-term solution will have those 2 sports playing at Polo Field. So for spring sports, that only leaves lacrosse, track, and tennis, all of which should be able to be accommodated on-site at Black Rock. For fall sports, there is only a need for space for boys and girls soccer and field hockey, as tennis and cross-country can both be accommodated on-site, volleyball plays indoors, and football is a combined team with the other middle schools. How many fields can be created on the current football field at Black Rock? Would an additional field be able to be created if the goalposts were removed, since there is no football team there to use them? Between boys and girls soccer and field hockey, some of those teams can be accommodated at Black Rock, so destroying the Oakwell property seems like a gross misuse of taxpayer dollars. I know that the district has been made aware of a full-size soccer field located on a private property 2 blocks away from Black Rock, which the owner is willing to sell to the district. There is also a property located at 1920 Montgomery Avenue, which is currently for sale. Both of these locations are closer than Oakwell and would allow students to walk to their sports fields with the addition of minimal sidewalks. Creative solutions like these need to be examined before the district pays $23 million to destroy Oakwell. When can the community expect an update regarding Oakwell and field space for Black Rock? There have been many recent presentations about full-day kindergarten and healthy start times, but no recent update on the fields other than the agreements with the JCC and Polo Fields. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in, and this is a soapbox issue of mine. None of our schools have football fields. All of our schools have multi-purpose fields that are available for all of our students. And I think it's really important as a district and as a community that we recognize that girls and non-football players use those fields as much, if not more, than the football teams. And that's a very specific, and I apologize, that is just one of my soapbox issues, but I think it's really important that we acknowledge that they are multi-purpose fields used by all sports and used by girls and boys, and that we not refer to them as football fields.
Yeah. Can I respond back to that quickly?
Sorry, we can have I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards, thank you.
Sure.
And just to respond to the survey questions, I shared, and it will be shared in a communication about some of the responses, the feedback we got about the survey. We have been in touch with Hanover about the design, some changes that they've made, so that's also in the communication. And they're not recommending that we scrap. They believe that we can move forward with the adjustments that they've made. And there was a scope based on the timeline we had of who we could involve in the survey, and so there was a targeted audience to that survey. And so to answer the question about who has been, we did the outreach to, just because of the timeline, we limited it to current families. So thank you for your comment.
Hi, good evening. Dina Yaski of Wynwood, and I'm speaking tonight as a converted Healthy Start Time supporter. I want to commend the district, community health members, students, parent advocates like Lisa, who I think have done a great job of getting the science and information out to a person. I can really only speak for a person in my sphere of engagement, but I think that you guys have done a great job. I like to think that when you know better, you do better. And I now know that adolescents need a different sleep schedule to function healthfully. I also know, as a person and an educator who works in schools, how frustrating it can be on your end to solve difficult problems. Parents want change, they speak out, they complain. Schools give them what they ask for, and parents still often complain. And I understand the frustration and the interest in getting something done. But I think that most of us parents are not naive enough to think that there is a solution to this puzzle that will please everyone. And when making a district-wide decision like this that's going to affect every student and every family, I really believe that you have to seek out the solution that will bring the greatest good to the greatest number of people. The current proposed order, beginning with middle school at 8 and ending with elementary at 9:20, doesn't provide the greatest good. The science and the data that I have been presented with, and you guys have gone to great lengths to responsibly share, says that we're in a health crisis and our adolescents need to start school later. If that's the case, then how can we in good conscience put middle school first and make them actually start school earlier? How can we sacrifice adolescents in grades 5 or 6 through 8 in favor of those from 9 to 12? How is that even ethical? How do we expect fourth graders to graduate from elementary school and then transition to a new start time an hour and a half earlier? How can we expect elementary families to absorb a significant financial burden? How can we expect a 6-year-old who is, according to research, waking up and at their prime at 6 a.m. to ride a bus home and a ride home close to 11 hours later near 5 p.m.? How can we accept poor educational, social, and emotional outcomes for 3/4 of our grades? I think the answer is we shouldn't. We need a schedule that starts middle school and high school later, but doesn't keep elementary students in school past exhaustion and their ability to learn. We also need to not just accept our current busing limitations as forever facts. And thank you, Dr. Slotner, for making those questions tonight. Okay, out of time.
Thank you, Ms. Yaski.
Mr. Travis? Then Lisa Process and Holly Manzoni.
Hello, I'm Lee Tabus. I'm a resident of Haverford, and my wife Nancy,
I'm sorry, you said
children.
you're, excuse me, resident of Haverford?
Yes.
So you don't live, you're not a resident or taxpayer of Lower Merion?
Haverford, Lower Merion Township.
There's one.
Okay, fine, all right, fine.
It is a little confusing. I'm a graduate of Harriton High School. My wife went to Lower Merion. We have 4 children. They all graduated from Lower Merion School District. I have 3 grandchildren now. They're in the Lower Merion schools. And I'm glad that I got a chance to come. I can't say that I ever came to a board meeting before. And I appreciate all the different challenges. And I think that you are doing a great job, the administration and the board. So thank you for that. I wanted to talk about the Black Rock Middle School playing fields. All our kids played sports. Sports are a very important thing. I think it was wonderful that the district was able to find that property that's nearby. And I don't know if we're calling it Oakwell, but in any event, I know there's a lot of people that organized and My understanding is that there's a compromise, and the compromise includes some fields at Oakwell, which compromises. I mean, that's a fact of life. I think that would be a great thing, and I think there's a majority of residents that are probably quiet, that don't say anything, and I wanted to represent that side of things to say that I'd like to see some fields at the Oakwell. I think it would be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, okay. Sorry, I've got a bunch of scribbles here. I had something prepared and then I modified it a lot. Lisa Prosnitz, Penn Valley. I'm excited to be here tonight and I'm grateful that our district continues to make progress. Thank you. Earlier this evening, administration sent out a second communication to parents informing them of their right to opt children out of the upcoming survey on start times. It would be a significant missed opportunity if our district does not, sorry, this is where I cross things out, does not educate our children on their very own sleep needs as they move through adolescence. If time is a significant issue, which it always is, even showing the Dr. Wendy Troxel 10-minute TED Talk, which is a wonderful video during advisory in high school or learn in the middle schools, would be tremendously beneficial for our kids. When I speak with my kids' high school friends, oh wait, I need my pen. When I speak with my kids' high school friends and ask their opinion, I hear concerns about after-school activities, jobs, homework load, and staying up later. I take the time to explain the research that supports later adolescent start times. That research shows how activities shift, jobs shift. We really do need to address some homework issues in the district, but that no, kids don't stay up later. In fact, we know that students do get more sleep. For instance, the Seattle School District, which delayed start time by nearly an hour, carried out a pre and post research study to show that there was an increase in the daily median sleep of at least 34 minutes, which was also associated with a 4.5 increase in the median grades of the students and improvement in attendance. Hearing it from me is not the same as hearing it from a sleep researcher. Those of you who are parents know that we don't always carry the same credibility. We are close, and we share the same goal of creating the healthiest environment from grades K through 12 in which our children can thrive. I ask that you push more education out to parents, students, teachers, and staff, including updated FAQs based on the feedback that you've received. And adequately dispelling the myths surrounding the change. I would also like to see in there details on why the schedule, the new proposal, is what it is. Those of us that have been kind of following this for a long time know the incident, like the proposal from 2017 and how that was received. But I think a lot of our parents that are newer to the district don't really understand and haven't really heard what happened in October of 2017 and some of the details around the busing and all those limits. Was it 17? 19. Yeah, sorry, everything's a jumble in my head. Ms. Schaefer, your summary slide on why we are making this change might also be helpful to include. I thought there was a lot of great information in there, so I just would love to see that shared. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnitz.
Good evening, I'm Holly Manzoni of Wynwood. I've been hearing a lot from the community about this compromise that, well, we'll just put some of the fields on Oakwell. And I can understand how to many people who perhaps don't understand biology that well, that might be a possibility. There is some open space there. But I do have a PhD in biology and I understand it pretty well. I think everybody knows trees grow up to the sky, they have their leaves that come out, and they're able to capture photons from the sun, and using that energy and the carbon dioxide that they take in from the underside of their leaves, they can make sugar. That's great. But that's only half of what the tree has to do. That's how they get their food supply. They still have to live. They still have to grow, just like any other living organism. And for that, they need oxygen, just like we do. But they don't get that in through the leaves. They get that in through the roots. Now, when people think of the trees growing up to the sky, I think there are a lot of people who think the roots go down to China or whatever, but they don't. The roots grow outward. In fact, the roots will grow 4 to 7 times the canopy of the tree. That's how far the leaves and everything go out. And they're very shallow. They're on the surface. If you look at pictures and diagrams of the roots, you'll see it's a lot like a capillary bed in our bodies. And if you get whacked on the arm, you're going to get a bruise because you've broken some capillaries. At the same time, if you have shoes that are too tight and they're constantly pushing on your foot in a certain spot, you're going to get a bruise there too from the constant or regular pressure. And what people need to understand is that with a big tree, their roots have to grow out really far to take in enough nutrients, water, and oxygen for that tree to grow. And what happens is, if you put a bulldozer in there, that's going to damage those roots, just like it would hurt your capillaries and cause a bruise. And when the roots are damaged, that tree will ultimately die. Now, not only would the big equipment coming in to make the fields damage the roots, but steady, constant use, heavy use by kids running around on the field will also bruise those roots and kill the trees. And we want to be reasonable. We love the idea that you're seeking compromise, but you need to understand scientifically that any fields on Oakwell will kill the trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manzoni.
That's it for the in-person comments.
Thank you, Ms. LaPera. Mr. Roos, if you could read the online comments.
Be happy to. Is my volume okay? Okay. First comment, Abby Rubin, Balakinwood. Thank you. Want to reiterate our support for full-day kindergarten no later than 2024 and to ask for an update on space constraint mitigation. Ezra Wood, Marion Station. I applaud the school for pushing to implement the new start times for fall 2023 and not postponing this crucial issue for more years. A couple quick points. 1, if there are any resulting complications involving interscholastic sports because other schools still have earlier start times, this is not a reason to postpone or cancel the proposed new start times. Instead, it will be a reason for all those other schools to move their high school start times later too. 2, there is a concern that if school starts later than high school students, there is a concern that if school starts later, then high school students will just stay up later and not actually get any sleep. This is simply not true. Studies have been done in school districts that have changed their high school start time and found that indeed students do get more sleep. Strongly urge all school board members to note that no schedule will be perfect. The question is whether the proposed change is an improvement, and the answer is clearly a resounding yes. Kay Sickles, Balakinwood. Please explain the comment about moving athletic practice and games off-site. Please provide the status of temporary light idea that has been discussed and whether that idea has been dismissed. Also, I know that my child was enthusiastic about the extra 30 minutes of sleep, is not in favor or the hour-plus move, severely impacting sports and pushing homework later into the evening. Thank you. Next is Kath Kurtz. My name is Kath Kurtz and I live in Narberth. I am here to ask you to do something pretty radical but actually fairly simple. Take a pause on Oakwell, just step back and put a hold on any building at Oakwell. Comments I'll split up, it's a little difficult. Let the new eyes coming onto the board take a fresh look at possibilities and hold off spending millions of dollars on a field at Oakwell. Fresh eyes may find alternative and better ways to spend the millions of dollars that a field at Oakwell would cost. Next is Laura Goldenberg. This is Laura Goldenberg from Ballard-Kinwood. I am here to support the implementation of healthy start times for September 2023. I have no reservations about moving forward with this plan, as it importantly takes into account the indisputable science around teens and their sleep schedules and needs. Understanding the complexities involved in making this change, I appreciate your plan to implement this plan in the fall and encourage you to make sure it happens. Thank you. Angela Robinson Gaylord, resident of Wynwood. As covered in the February 2nd, 2023 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer, an organization that is based outside of Lower Merion has filed a complaint with the Federal Department of Education challenging diversity, equity, and inclusion activities in various schools in the Lower Merion School District. Can the board please outline the process by which the school district will gather community feedback as it pertains to this complaint? Additionally, what is the process and timing for the Lower Merion School District to provide a response to this complaint? Would you like me to respond to that now or later? Now? Currently there is no process and timing for a response because the EEOC has not yet issued a charge against the school district.
OCR.
I'm sorry, the Office of Civil Rights.
The complaint was filed with the Office of Civil Rights.
Yeah, the Office of Civil Rights has not yet actually issued a charge against the district, so and they may never. So there's no process and timing for the response. Katie DeBuff. Hello, my name is Katie DeBuff from Ardmore. I am excited about the update from last month's meeting about implementing full-day kindergarten starting in the 2024-2025 school year. I know space continues to be a constraint, especially in the buildings that are more crowded. I'm wondering what steps are being taken to identify spaces in district schools or other buildings to keep the momentum moving forward for 2024. Thank you. Adrian Seltzer, Wynwood. Given that Hanover messed up the HST survey, why would you have them doing more surveys? Will you be letting the community know about the errors in the survey so they can resubmit? How will this affect the outcome? Central Bucks School Board to revoke Policy 321, which was adopted on January 10th, 2023. We also ask that they issue a formal apology to students, teachers, staff, and the broader community for the harm it has caused. Policy 321 on partisan, political, or social policy advocacy activities would ban educators from displaying symbols or voicing an opinion relating to partisan, political, or social issues. This ban includes items such as flags, pins, or posters with rainbows that support the LGBT community, items that support the racial justice movement like Black Lives Matter, and most recently, the district administrator deemed that a poster with a quote from Holocaust survivor and novelist Eli Wiesel was included under the ban. Only after intense public scrutiny did the district reinstated Wiesel's quote. Adrian, I sent this to all of you, and will you commit to signing on to this petition? Kate Legge. My name is Kate Legge, Wynwood, PA. I want to express my concerns that there has still not been an explanation as to the rationale behind the order for the start times. The science shows that middle school students, particularly middle school girls, are greatly impacted by a lack of sleep. The current proposal takes away more of their sleep. Further, the science shows that elementary students lose their ability to focus and learn as the day goes on. My third grader noted tonight that it is already quite difficult to learn math, which is taught towards the end of the day because so many of the students are unfocused and antsy. At this point, is there any consideration of looking at the entire body of science when considering start times? If not, please say as to why. Finally, you have stated that you only want someone to answer the survey once. My children are different ages and the impact on them will be very different. Jill Altschuler, Marion Station. I apologize I had to miss most of Ms. Schaefer's presentation due to another meeting, so perhaps the following question was answered. Is there a possibility that students will no longer be able to attend Central Monco Technical High School next year if later start times are implemented? I read the information on the presentation slides, but could not figure out what the status is on that. Do you want to handle it now?
No, we anticipate needing to make adjustments, but not that students would be precluded from attending that program.
Okay, and I have one last comment. Is that what you have?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Esther Kim, Penn Valley, the current start times are inflicting chronic sleep deprivation on our teens. This is dangerous for their physical and mental health, as proven by pediatricians. Also, teen drivers are at higher risk than adults for causing accidents. That risk is made worse by the chronic sleep deprivation. Thus, the current early start times endanger the entire community and must be made a priority over all the other issues. If teachers don't like healthy and safe start times for the kids, they are free to seek employment elsewhere. Also, practice on Arnold Field is an optional extracurricular activity for a few kids and should not force all other kids who don't use Arnold Field into a state of chronic sleep deprivation. Please recognize that a health issue takes priority. All the other issues must be arranged around health and safety.
Did you say Genevieve Saylor? Where's this one? One more, sorry.
No, I didn't.
Genevieve Saylor from Bryn Mawr. The Zoom connection for tonight's meeting was impossibly frail. Audio and video constantly cut out. Slides were illegible. Respectfully request technical review of and reinforcement so residents can participate in meetings virtually in a meaningful manner. We did have technical difficulties at the very beginning, but they were fixed.
Will they be fixed?
They were.
Will the recording, did it impact the recording?
I'm not sure if it affects the recording or not. Mr. Fraser's saying it should not.
It should not. It should not affect the recording.
Thank you. So even though there were technical difficulties, hopefully people will be able to go back once the closed captioning is done and the video is online, be able to see the beginning of the. Okay, thank you. I also just want to note there were several comments about that there was an existing agreement regarding 1835 and the Black Rock Middle School playing site. I just wanted to say that we are still in process of working with Haverford and Lower Merion Township to finalize that agreement. And once that is set in place, and it's something that we will vote on as a board to partake in that agreement. After that point, there have been conversations with various stakeholders around that site, but there is no plan and whatever opportunities are made available or sort of discussed, the board will come and present that at a meeting, or the administration will present that at a meeting. But I don't want any people to think that there's like this existing alternate plan that exists, because there is not one at this time. Okay, thank you, sorry. Still continues to be my mic. So now we're going to move on in our agenda to the business part of our board meeting. Before we move towards approving the agenda, I wanted to ask if the board had any questions on any of the topics that are listed on the agenda. Ms. Kalish?
I have three very brief and easy questions, hopefully. For 10A, I was just hoping that maybe Dr. McGloin, you could talk a little bit about what financial assistance is available for our summer programs, because that item is laying out the cost of what the summer programs are. And I know we have financial assistance available, and so I'd just like to hear what programs are available and what eligibility for those looks like.
Sure. So students that qualify for free and reduced lunch, actually we pay for them to go to these programs. In addition to that, those SPIES this year will also be funded partially through the ESSER grant. So this is our last year of ESSER funding. We've had a couple years in a row. This year, ESSER will pick up $200 of the $850 tuition for SPIES. And so we're still picking up partial for anybody that doesn't qualify for free reduced lunch that pays the full tuition. We're picking up $200 worth of that tuition as well through our grant. It's our last year though of grant funding. Next year, they'll have to pay full tuition.
And we communicate that to families when they're registering that there is financial assistance available?
Yes, it's actually in all of our brochures, and it tells them how to apply to receive that funding as well.
Perfect.
And to clarify for people that might not know, ESSER funding was COVID funding.
Yes.
So my next question is 11D on the supplementary security officers. And I was just wondering why we need extra security officers, and how and if how will they be armed?
They will not be armed. They'll serve in a similar capacity to our existing security officers, just at additional points in the district, so that, just to address flow of student traffic, especially at the high school.
Okay.
Lower Marion High School, between the buildings, and have additional presence, but they are not armed. None of our security officers are armed.
Good. And so I'm just wondering how the need was identified.
It was identified through, from the building.
Okay.
And it's a temporary measure just to see if that assistance is helpful, and we're evaluating what may be a longer-term solution for our buildings.
Great, thank you. And my last item is not really a question so much as a request for 13A, like Sam was speaking to earlier, and I was just hoping that we could, as a board, be kept in the loop about the MOU with LMPD as that's being negotiated.
We shared that out over the past few policy meetings as it was in first review, second review, and voted on it previously.
Okay, and so but that's not coming to the board tonight, is it?
The policy is, but not the MOU. The policy simply states that there is one. The MOU's been, was approved.
Right, my understanding was, reading the materials for this from the policy committee, that reading the attachment was that there would be an MOU to be negotiated shortly, and I just wanted, was I misreading that?
Correct.
Okay.
You were misreading that. The MOU is required, every school district is required to have an MOU with their local police department. Ken, can you speak to how often that's?
Yeah.
It's every 2 years, and I don't specifically recall when this one was. I think it's up.
This year.
Next year?
Coming up.
Yep.
Yeah,
This
it
is
will
the
be
second-
coming up.
The end of the second year.
Okay, great. So something to discuss with your successor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So are there any other questions from the board? Ms. Schaffmeister?
Yeah, I have a couple. Actually, one on 11D as well. I was just wondering, what type of training do we give to the security that they follow the policies and procedures of how we interact with the students within our buildings?
We partner with the company to provide the training around the policies we have, and then in-house, they're managed by our supervisor of security, who does, on-site training with them. So they're both expected to be trained on our policies by virtue of the contract we have, but also check-ins with our security team. So if anyone has concerns about anything related to them, they are, they should be directed to us in the, first instance, so we can review any of those concerns.
Great, thanks for that. And then the other one I noticed is it is M under 12 facilities, and the theft and vandalism of the catalytic converters. This comes from a lens of where I work at the preschool, where I work. Our school buses became our area became like their shopping ground for. We made the news because 3 times they were cut off, replaced. And I'm just wondering what kind of security measures we're implementing to ensure that doesn't start happening.
All of our buses, when they're parked overnight, are parked within secure gated areas. There's lighting on those facilities, and there's also camera coverage. Regrettably, the camera coverage is only going to tell you about the incident after it happened. So we do have them in gated, fenced-in facilities overnight.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Oh, terrific. Okay. So do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda via consent?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Now, do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Got it.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Motion passes. Mr. Roos, can you please give us a report on the Sunshine Act?
Yes, the board met tonight, mostly an information session, but there was some executive session discussion on land use litigation, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Roos. Upcoming board meetings, which are our full board meeting dates, which are held at 8 p.m. here in the District Administration Office. Boardroom, Monday, March 13th is Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting, and Monday, March 20th is a regular Business Board Meeting. Committee meetings will be held here in the boardroom. They are both live streamed and recorded, as are our regular board meetings starting at 8:30 a.m. unless noted otherwise. January 25th is our next communication. That doesn't make sense.
That's my fault. February 22nd. is
Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
my fault. Thank you.
February 22nd is the upcoming Equity and Anti-Racism Committee, no longer ad hoc. At 7 p.m. It'll be held via Zoom. March 1st is our next Curriculum Committee meeting, 8:30 a.m. here. Friday, March 3rd will be the Policy Committee meeting. Thursday, March 16th is the next Facilities and Purchasing meeting. These are all at 8:30 a.m. here in the District Administration Office. March 29th will be the next Communications Committee meeting at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Please note, due to the upcoming spring break, which is the first week of April, both the April Curriculum and Policy Committee meetings will actually be held at the very end of March. Curriculum will be Wednesday, March 29th at 8:30 a.m. and Policy will be Friday, March 31st, the day before spring break, at 8:30 a.m. I just wanted to note two upcoming events. Committee for Special Education is having programming tomorrow evening, and then Thursday evening is a inter-school council presentation in support of our transgender kids. That'll be at 7 p.m. Both of those are via Zoom, and also starting March 4th through the 11th is the Inter-School Council Art Show at the Mainline Art Center. I encourage everyone to go and attend. It has art pieces from students in all of our 11 schools, and it's a really great event. You can see the amazing work that our teachers do with our students at that throughout that week-long opportunity. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.